Look, I'm actually really excited. I was about, I don't know, maybe, when was it? I was in Thailand. When was I in Thailand? I can't remember. But when I was in Thailand, I was sitting on a deck chair overlooking a little beach called Kalim, I think it's called. And I was thinking about in the next 12 months. And then I started to think about the annual planning. And then I started to think, wow, this is going to be one of the biggest annual plannings that we've ever done before. Is it really going to be effective to have every single person in the company involved in the annual planning process moving forward? And I thought to myself, well, maybe we should actually look at this as a little bit of a test. Like, let's bring, the bulk of, and by the way, the reason we didn't bring the sales team is the sales team is obviously incredibly very, very, very new. And with the revenue targets, not being hit at the level that they that required, we've decided to leave them back. Now, whether that happens next year, I'm not really too sure. But my point being, I started to think, should we actually look at this as a little bit of a test? Like, can we actually see if bringing everyone into this environment actually has a positive impact? Because please understand, like, I feel zero guilt when it comes to the work environment that I create for you guys. You guys get a personal trainer, you've got a gym, you have your food bought for you. Who would agree we have an amazing culture? So it's not like we need to fucking give you a holiday on Hayman Island in order to, give you that little bit of sweet and to go, well, it's okay working for Kerwin. This is just something that we add on top as a way to bring you in at a strategic level. It just happens to be, at oh my fucking God, that's beautiful. Wouldn't you agree? It's beautiful. It just happens to be in a beautiful place. It's incredibly inspiring. But at the same time, then I started to think, well, how can we actually maybe make this event more practical from a talent perspective? And I thought to myself, do you know how many, and I want you guys to think about this, who wants to take a guess at how many hours a year I spend speaking on stage to people, showing them how to increase their performance in their life, whether it be their personal life, their business life, their relationship lives? Hundreds of hours every year. I'm on stage and I'm showing people how to increase their performance. Not just working with business owners, working with parents. Even had the privilege of working with some special forces in Europe. Professional athletes as well. And then I thought to myself, how many hours in the last 12 months have actually stood up in front of the team and actually educated the team on performance? Like, giving you guys the insights that I've taken from working with some of the world's best performers and with what we share to our clients. Because who's seen some of the results that our clients get? It's fucking phenomenal. Like, whether you're talking a 2x, a 3x, a 4x, a 10x, a 20x, that's just on the financial side. But then when you look at the lives that we change, and who's seen it on social media? Like, who reads the Monday Magic? Who doesn't read the Monday Magic? Okay, let me try that again. Who reads Monday Magic? Okay. Who doesn't read Monday Magic? Okay, Anita, you haven't put your hand up once. You don't know who doesn't know what Monday Magic is? There we go. All right. Monday Magic is something where the social team, and a big thanks to Lana for doing this, because since you've taken it over, it's really kind of taken it to a really nice next level. We capture, some really key moments in people's lives that they share with us on social media. And then we share it in the K-Team Facebook group. And it gives you a real way to connect with what we do, because sometimes when you're in accounts, you don't get to see the lives being changed. You don't get to see people being affected. But when you start to read some of the magic moments from Monday Magic, you start to get a bit of an inkling that it's not just the clients that we get FaceTime with, it's the clients that we actually touch on social media as well. Like, we really are changing lives all over the world. And I'm not sure to what level that sinks in with every one of you, because for some of you it's probably like, oh yeah, we do a little bit of good. And for some of you, like, wow, we are deeply impacting the consciousness of this planet. And depending on the value you have around that will determine if that's important to you or not. For me, like, what we do is mission critical to the survival of our species. Now, I'm not saying us as a company are going to determine the survival of the human species, although I'd like to think Eric has a big part in it. But what I do know is, when you look at communities like ours, the more the communities you have like ours, the greater chance we have as a species to evolve and become, more productive as a species rather than destructive. Because I'm not a mass environmentalist, but who opens their eyes wide enough to realise that we are actually, in some cases, being quite destructive to this planet. We are, in some cases, being quite destructive to the next generation that are coming through, depending on how we parent them, depending on how we school them, depending on how we educate them. So for me, this 3 days was like, well, fuck, how about we actually take a moment, Kerwin? Like, I was literally having a bit of a conversation with myself. Wasn't on mushrooms, swear. How do I take this opportunity to actually share with you guys the stuff that I share with others that creates massive transformations in their life? And so as a part of this 3 days, moving forward, this is just going to be something we're going to trial moving forward. I want to take more opportunities to sit down with you guys as a group, connect with you guys as a group, but actually educate you guys as a group on what high performance, because anyone can spit out the words high performance. And who's heard the word high performance bandied around our culture a few times, once or twice, right? Who here is sometimes sitting there going, fuck, what is high performance? Who here sits there and thinks, am I a high performer? Yeah, fair questions to ask. And see, in our culture, we actually have, and I'm going to be very open with you guys about this, we have a very high turnover rate of talent. And for some of you, it freaks you the fuck out. Because you're like, I've never been in a business before where people come and go so quickly. But let me give you a little bit of an insight on that. And an insight that's really going to empower you to understand the performance nature of our culture. Has anyone here heard of Navy SEALs? Okay, who here has heard of what's called BUDS training? Okay, BUDS training is essentially the 6 weeks of training that you go through in order to qualify for SQT, which is SEAL Qualification training. Okay, so you've got to do 6 weeks of absolute fucking hell of training of the worst you can just think of, and the last week you don't sleep. You get 20 minutes over 5 days to sleep, and you are constantly involved in physical, vigorous activities. Whether it be running, whether it be doing kill houses, whether it be swimming, like you are literally immersed in hell. They actually call it Hell Week. Now, what's really interesting is the US government, does anyone know how much it costs to train one Navy SEAL over an 18-month period? $3 million for one Navy SEAL over an 18-month period. That's a fucking mad investment, right? But here's what's really interesting. Guess what percentage of people actually graduate that first 6 weeks of BUDS training just to be able to qualify to go to SEAL qualification training, then to actually qualify to become a SEAL? BUDS is like, this is where they sort out the men from the boys, so to speak. I mean no sexist remark by saying that. Just had to cover that with legal. But who wants to take a guess at what the turnover rate in BUDS training is of SEALs? Of people who want to be a SEAL, always want to be a SEAL. My old man was in the military. I want to make him proud. I want to become a SEAL and protect this country. Who wants to take a guess at the failure rate? You probably already know. But what is it? What's the failure rate in SEALs? It's 80% failure rate. 80% of people who go into BUDS don't make it. They end up quitting, and in order to quit in BUDS training, you've actually got to leave whatever exercise you're in, walk up, and they have a bell, and you've got to ring the bell, and that basically says, I'm out. Here's what's really interesting. $3 million to train a Navy SEAL. So the US government, they've done this dozens of times. They sit down and they go, it costs us so much to train these Navy SEALs. We should get much better at being able to identify the talent that's required so that we don't have this 80% churn rate, because this 80% churn rate is costing us tens of millions of dollars every year. Who understands what I'm talking about here? And so they went and did psychometric, psychological, physiological profiling. They worked with the best psychologists, neurophysicists, every possible behaviourist that they could find at a physical and a neurological and a psychological level. And they came up with a profiling system to be able to interview people to determine a higher probability of success. They spent tens of millions of bucks on this project, invested it, deployed it, and in the next 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, guess what the failure rate was? 80%. It was still 80%. And see, in our organisation, and it's the same thing as in the SEALs, and look, I don't use that contrast lightly, there's one thing you can't train for. And who wants to take a guess at the one thing you can't train a Navy SEAL for? What is the one thing you can't train this individual to do in order to increase the probability of them being in that 20%? For those of you who know, for those of you who don't, think. Okay, because this conversation isn't about me spoon-feeding rhetoric to you. What I want to do is I want to prime your mind to want to know. So sometimes when I ask a question, I don't necessarily want the answer. I want you to think about what the answer might be, because it makes your mind hungry to actually absorb what comes next. Does this make sense? Because if I ask you a question and just give you the answer, it's just going to roll over a neuron. Whereas if I ask you the question and I prime you to want to know, the neuron's going to become active. It's going to want to connect with something to create understanding. And then when I give you the answer after you've thought about it, there's a much higher chance of retention. It's a part of the accelerated learning model. So who wants to take a guess at the one thing you can't train a Navy SEAL for? Mindset. Pardon? Mindset. Culture? Motivation? Grit. The one thing that they identify that they can't train people for is grit. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. What the fuck does grit mean? Like, what does grit mean? Who's got a pretty clear, yeah, I know what grit means, I'm pretty clear. Who's like, I haven't got a fucking clue what grit means? Who's like, I think I know, but I'm not sure? Well, let me tell you what grit is, okay? Now, by the way, they've also identified that grit is a quality that relates to resilience, and it's also a quality that relates to fulfillment. And people with high levels of grit experience higher levels of fulfillment and happiness. And this is where it gets really fucking interesting. When you look at what grit is, based on the context that we're talking about in this moment right now, guess what grit actually is? Think about it. What do you think grit actually is? Spit out some answers. Stability, focus, commitment, discipline, your ability to push, resilience, Stickability? Okay, here is the most concise one-line response answer. It's the ability to suffer and to keep pushing. And see, that's the real difference in life. Like when you look at life, the people who succeed in life, they're the people that have things that happen to them. They feel the suffering and they push through it. Okay, whereas the other people in life, they feel the suffering and what do? They actually retreat. And if you retreat, guess what happens? You don't actually get to experience the fulfillment of learning, okay, whatever it is that you're trying to push through, or actually attaining whatever the goal is that you're trying to push through for. Does this make sense? Are you guys with me right now? So one of the reasons that our turnover rate is quite high, and by the way, because some people like try and hide their turnover rate, I'm fucking proud of it. Like when I network with my buddies, who sit there on their 3, 4, 5 and 15% turnover rates, I sit there and I brag that I've got a 45% turnover rate. By the way, most of that comes from sales. Just saying. But I want you to understand why I'm proud. Now, by the way, please don't misunderstand or misrepresent in your mind what I'm saying right now. I don't want to have a high turnover rate, but I understand it's the nature of the culture. And what I mean by that doesn't mean that we can't improve it. It doesn't mean we can't spend money to make it less. But what I understand is in a high-performance culture, just like in Bud's training, not everyone's going to have the ability to push through in the moments that matter. Okay, and when you're surrounded by a bunch of high performers, sometimes it's hard to push through when you don't want to because you feel uncomfortable. It's like, well, fuck, I want to do it, but I actually, the pain feels so great, but everyone's watching me. It's such a visible environment. One of the reasons our turnover rate is so high is because not everyone can perform at the level that most people in this organisation do. And I'm not fucking ashamed to say that, okay? And although maybe legally it's not the right thing to say, I don't really give a fuck. What I do know is for those people that stick in this organisation, okay, they grow. Okay, they become better, they become stronger, they become sharper, but they don't also become good at what they do. They become better people at the same time. You look at our clients, it's exactly the same with our clients, okay? The only difference being is they're actually paying us to give what we give you. Let me to put that into context. Every year our clients pay us anywhere between $50,000 to $80,000 per business to give them and train them on what we actually pay you guys to have. I want to just let that land for you guys for a second. And so as a company, we do tens of millions of dollars every year because businesses invest in us to teach them what we give you for free. Does this make sense? So to me, this is a privilege. Being on Hamilton Island, we are in Hamilton Island, right? Yeah. I thought Hayman for a second. Hayman, I wasn't thinking, oh, fuck, am I in Thailand again? It's fucking flashbacks. Where was I? It is, honestly, to me, thank you, Eric. To me, like when I was going through my employee stage, working in an organisation like this would have been a fucking dream. Like it would have been an absolute dream, not just because you've got a gym, not just because you've got a trainer, not just because we buy food for you and provide an amazing environment, but because you put it in an environment where you're hired based on your talents and your personality, where you're actually given a real shot to do exactly what it is that you want to do, as long as you're willing to claim it. You see, in this organisation, like depending on what your level of exposure has been to leadership or not, I want you to understand, leadership in this organisation has nothing to do with how long you've been here. Nothing to do with it. Has nothing to do with the role that you're in. And has everything to do with the behaviours that are visible. Okay? And how those visible behaviours actually affect other people that are around you. And tomorrow we're going to talk about the 3 levels of influence. I've put together a presentation for you guys tomorrow to help you guys understand the power to influence that you actually have, regardless of where you are right now. But see, every single one of you, you're all leaders. In my mind, you're all leaders in this organisation. But to me, leadership is a spectrum. And where you play in that spectrum depends how invested you are in the outcome of becoming a leader. But what I do know is this. The better a leader you become in the organisation, guess what happens as a natural consequence? When we work with our clients and we develop them to become better leaders in their organisation, guess what happens to their businesses? Their businesses grow. They perform at high levels. But guess what happens in their personal lives? They flourish. They flourish. Because when you look at human interaction in most cases is dictated by leadership. Who is leading who? Are you following or are you leading? And is the example that you're setting a healthy one that people want to follow and are inspired to follow? Or is it a destructive one that they follow because they don't know any better? But what I do want you all to understand is every single one of you have the opportunity in the next 12 months to really step up as a leader. And by stepping up as a leader, that means being aware, first and foremost, of the visibility that you have and becoming more conscious of what it is that you're demonstrating with all those behaviours. Because what you need to understand in our organisation, visibility, you will never work in a more transparent organisation. Everybody knows what everybody's doing. Everybody knows when everyone does well. Everybody knows when everyone makes a mistake, okay? And that's just the way it is. But what we need to work on is how do we deal with that? How do we deal with mistakes when they're made? Okay, how do we deal with our own performance when we're perhaps not performing at the highest level? And how do we deal with performance when we're perhaps performing too high for too long and perhaps we're feeling like we're going to burn ourselves out, but we're afraid to slow down because it's a high performance culture? Does this make sense? You guys with me on this? So today, I want to start the conversation, and we'll do some flip charts just so that we can put them up around the room. Oh, we've got 2 flip charts. Fuck yeah. I wish I had 5. I got this. It's all right. I got it. I got it. I got it. I'm good. I got it. What do I start every conversation with? Whenever I'm talking to clients, I always start the conversation with one specific keyword and frame to set everything up. Who wants to take a royal random guess at what it might be? Because right now we're moving into the performance conversation. Let's talk high performance. Let's talk how do we access the greatest parts of ourselves in order to perform at the highest levels so that we can have significant output not only in our role in our job, but also have significant output in our personal life as well. Where do you think it all starts? Do you consider yourself a high performer? You could start there. For me, this is a game around consciousness. Oh. It says consciousness. Pretty sure. Fuck, I know what it says, all right? That's all that matters. It's a conversation around consciousness. Like when you want to improve any area of your life, where does it start with? Self, yep. Okay, give me more. Being aware of what needs to change. You know, a lot of people, you know, who, if you've got any experience, has anyone here ever had direct contact with an addict before, or an alcoholic or someone in that kind of a realm, right? When someone's experiencing a high level of dysfunction, which addiction can sometimes bring out, what is the first step that's required in order for change to take place? You've got to admit that there's a problem. Okay? And this is a high performance trait. How do you become a better performer? The first thing is you've got to become conscious of where your performance level is at. You've got to know where your benchmark is. Okay? But you've also got to understand the difference between a benchmark and a goal. Because sometimes some of us assume our benchmarks are our goals. And it's like, no. Ticking boxes doesn't make you a fucking high performer. Let me make this really fucking clear. Ticking boxes does not make you a high performer. You can tick every fucking box, okay, every day and every week and every quarter, but that doesn't make you a high performer. That makes you a box ticker. Okay.
Do you want to expand on that?
On the box ticker?
Yeah.
Not really.
No, I don't think so.
But my point being is, high performance isn't playing within the lines. Does this make sense? High performance is about the lines becoming so blurred that you just push through and you find new lines, you find new boxes. Okay, boxes that didn't even exist. So please understand this culture, in order to perform at a high level, there's got to be a level of consciousness that's applied to it. Okay, there's got to be a level of awareness. Now, I want you to think about this from a metric perspective. The human brain processes 16 trillion bits of information every 1 second. That's massive, massive. 16 trillion bits of information. But guess how many bits of those information you're actually aware of? Who wants to take a guess? Anyone? Right now, I'm aware that my bum hurts. Less than 10%. Your brain processes 16 trillion. And you know the beautiful thing is? Every single one of our K2s could recite the answers to this. Because I spend so much time going through this information with the K2s. I spend so much time going through this information with our community. And this to me is indicative of we need to do more of this work. We process 16 trillion bits of information every 1 second, but here's the interesting part. Most of us are only conscious. This is sub, okay? What's conscious, okay, is only about 2,000 bits of information. Okay, they're the things that you're aware of, your sensory experience, okay, from your eyeballs to your ears to the things that you feel and smell and taste. 2,000 bits of information, which means you are literally filtering out trillions of bits and pieces of information. Now, what makes a high performer a high performer? Or what is one of the things that makes a high performer a high performer? So when you tap into the 16 trillion, what are you doing? One of the things that makes a high performer is their ability to see things that others can't. Okay? And what is required to see things that others can't? A higher level of what? Consciousness. See, to me, consciousness, it's not just a spiritual conversation, okay, but it is, but it's also a performance conversation. It's also a parenting conversation. It's also a relationship conversation. It's also a role conversation. Because the question is, how conscious are you in different areas of your life? Because every single one of you right now need to understand your brain is a cognitive miser. Its number one goal is to actually filter information so that it doesn't become overwhelmed, so it doesn't fucking freak out and fucking walk you off a cliff. Literally, your brain's number one goal is to filter information to prevent overwhelm. Because the moment you trigger overwhelm, guess what happens? You go into what? Fight or flight? Which means your ability to actually rationally think and make proper decisions goes completely out the window. The only thing you're good at in fight or flight is punching on or running away. And hopefully you don't run over a cliff in your desire to run away because you're so overwhelmed, your focus is completely narrowed. In most cases, you could run into a wall and you wouldn't know until you woke up 10 minutes later. Who understands what I'm talking about here, okay? So, when we understand... there was something else I want to share with you guys. When you start to understand that we all have the ability to expand our consciousness, you start to understand... Okay, sorry, I remember what I was going to say. When you start to understand the way your brain works, then you get the opportunity to hack it. Okay, and for me, the way that I hack my brain is by helping it focus on the things that it needs to, but by then allowing the conscious and the awareness to actually expand. Now, let me give you a little bit of a story that might highlight the point that I'm trying to make here. Has anyone here ever gone looking for something, but they couldn't find it? But then they found it sitting right in front of them, or in some cases, in their fucking hand. Has anyone ever had that experience before? Okay, right, we're all in the same boat. Happens to me every day. So, okay, you go to the cupboard, you open the cupboard, you're looking for the salt, and I'll use this because it's the best example I've got. You look around and you suggest to yourself, you say to yourself, there's no salt here. And so as a result, your brain, being the cognitive miser, doesn't want to process too much energy, okay, because it processes a lot. Okay, goes, okay, salt gone. There is no salt there. And as a result, poof, the salt that was actually sitting right in front of you is gone. And then you look around and you go, oh, fuck, the salt's not here. And what do? You yell out to your partner. And what do you say to them? Hey, honey, have you seen the salt? And they say to you what? It's in the cupboard. And you go, no, it's not. I'm looking in the fucking cupboard and it ain't there. And then they go, yes, it is. You go, no, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. And they fucking crawl over. They go, what the fuck is this, bozo? And it was right in front of you. Who's had that experience before, right? That is actually what is referred to in psychology terms as a scotoma. Now, a scotoma is a psychologically induced blind spot, but what's really interesting is when you look at the scotomic nature of the brain is scotomic in nature. It's constantly blurring things out. It's constantly blocking things out to focus on the things that you've programmed to be conscious of, that you deem to be of the highest value. Does this make sense? Are you guys with me? So what high performers do, whether it be by virtue or by lesson or by learning, is they start to become more conscious. They start to focus, okay? They start to, in some cases, still their mind, but they start to engage in practices that help them expand their awareness, okay? By, in most cases, learning how to regulate emotion, learning how to regulate stress. Because when we look at this scenario here, when you look at consciousness is literally the doorway to high performance. Because to be a high performer, you need to be able to think, do, and see things that others can't, okay? In most cases. What do you think is the enemy of high performance? It's one of, but not the one I'm going for. In fact, ego is actually quite common in high performers. But it's the health of the ego that would be in question. Do they have a healthy ego that they display and they balance with humility? Or is their ego just all aggressive and all push and there's no vulnerability and there's no humility present? That to me is an unhealthy ego. Ego is not a bad thing. It's not a dirty word. It's just how healthy is your ego? Okay, is your ego so full of itself that it can't see any wrong? There is no balance? Or do you have the ability to be able to assert yourself even when you're unsure, but be open and vulnerable to the fact that you might be wrong, but you still stand behind the things that are important to you? Does this make sense? Ego is not a dirty word. So ego is not the enemy here. What is the enemy of high performance? Where's my red? Where's my red? Where the fuck's my red? It's all right, don't worry. The enemy of high performance is stress. Why is stress the enemy? Because when you experience stress, you engage in, your body is triggered into fight or flight. Okay, and if I can just add some more into this, what do you think is typically something that accompanies stress? Now I've got to make sure I get the right fucking pens here. Okay, that one stays here. You're experiencing, go back, what you think about the last time you were really fucking stressed. What else was present in your body, in your mind, in your experience when you were stressed? Yeah. Who here, when they get stressed, they get a little bit fucking emotional? That's fucking normal. It's completely normal. Fuck, I need colours. Emotions. And when we consider that emotions are a spectrum, okay, you could sit there and say, well, there are 7 base primal emotions. And yes, there are 7 base primal emotions. But to me, rather than trying to fraction emotions, I look at emotions based on a spectrum of expression based on charge. Fuck no. All right. So I'm on a... Who's enjoying this, by the way? Okay, fantastic. All right. So the spectrum of emotion is you've got high positive emotion, okay, and you've also got low negative emotion. But what we need to understand, high performers aren't immune to stress, okay? High performers experience stress just like everybody else, but they just process stress differently. You know, and the greatest, a great quote that I heard once from Serena Williams was actually playing, I think it was the Wimbledon finals, this is going back a few years ago, and it was like fucking, it was the grand finals, it was the last set, it was like a nail-biter fucking finish. And one of the commentators said, oh, Serena, I wonder if she's going to crack under the pressure. There's a lot of pressure on Serena to back this up. And the other commentator said, so eloquently, he said, well, that's the thing about Serena. Pressure to a he said, pressure to a superstar isn't pressure. It's the opportunity to perform. And that's what she does best. Let's just watch. And of course, she fucking throws one down the line and she wins Wimbledon. And see, this is what we've got to understand. Stress is not something that we're trying to avoid as a high performer. But Kerwin, you just said stress is the enemy of high performance. It is. But it's not stress that is the enemy of high performance, it's your relationship with it. How do you relate to stress? Both at a psychological level. Mentally, how do you relate to stress? Like when you feel stressed, what are the loops that you run? Okay? When you experience stress physically, like what happens in your body? Do you tighten up? There are so many different things that happen during the stressful, when you're experiencing stress, but it's not the enemy. What is the enemy is the inability to regulate stress. It's the inability to deal with the emotions that come up with stress. Because when you're experiencing emotion, you know, this is the tricky thing about emotion. When you're experiencing emotion, depending on where it is on the spectrum, can't use that one, can't use that one. Okay, you've got the positive part of the spectrum, you've got the negative part of the spectrum. In order for you to be really happy, in order for you to be really ecstatically happy about something, what does your brain actually have to do in order to maintain a really highly positive outlook? No, don't answer it just yet. But if no one else can, I want you to. Timmy!
Your ability to pull back to neutral.
Sorry, I just forgot the question. What was I asking?
How if you're at either end of the spectrum, like
What was my question?
What does your brain have to do?
Okay. What your brain has to do to focus on one side of the equation, it has to filter out all of the information in the other side. Now, we live in a reality that's based on duality, which means what? Everything, what is this table made of? It's all made of fucking energy, okay? It's made of atoms that are vibrating at a specific rate of frequency that either give it the appearance of density, or they vibrate so high that it gives the appearance of fluidity, okay? The only difference between the atoms in the water and the atoms in the table is the speed in which they're oscillating, okay? It's all energy, okay? And we have positive charge energy and we have negative charge energy. Put those two together, what do you have? You have the reality that is made up that you live in right now. So, in order for you to experience a heightened positive emotion, when we look at it from an energetics perspective, you literally have to filter out all negative. In order to experience a heightened level of happiness, like I'm talking positivity, you literally have to stop thinking about everything negative in your life. And in order for you to be really depressed and upset, you have to literally force yourself and filter out everything that you're happy about in your life. Who understands what I'm talking about right now, okay? So by virtue of our brain, when we're experiencing an emotion or when we experience stress, our brain starts to filter information differently. When we experience stress and emotion together, we go from processing 2,000 bits of information consciously down to 120. That is the stark contrast. You lose massive amounts of consciousness, massive amounts of awareness when you're stressed. Stress fucks you up. But here's what's going to fry your noodle a little bit. Stress is also the cure. Stress is the problem, but it's also the cure. Stress isn't the problem. It's our inability to deal with the stress. It's our inability to regulate it and deal with the emotions. But most importantly, it's also our ability to become conscious of when we are experiencing stress, conscious of when we are experiencing emotions, so that then we can actually use whatever tools that we have in order to balance ourselves out so that we have a much bigger perspective. Who's actually competed in, who's either watched a lot of high-level competitive sport or has competed in a lot of high-end competitive sport? What do you notice about the individuals that compete at a very high level? They're committed, yes. Focused. They're very focused. Okay? And they don't get all hyped up, they don't get all emotional, they're just very focused with that. They're very calm, they're very centered. Why do you think being calm and being centered is so appealing in a high performance environment? In some cases, what do you think is the difference between a high performer and someone who is perhaps... Okay, what is, in some cases, the difference between someone who can play tennis at a Wimbledon level and someone who's just struggling to play, C-grade regional? Well, first of all, it's going to come down to their skill level. And their skill level is going to be determined by what they actually see. Okay, and what you see, and your ability to see what's in front of you will be determined by how much stress and how much your emotion that you actually experience on a moment-to-moment basis. See, one of the things that gives the high performers the advantage in high-pressure situations is they regulate stress to such a high degree that they allow their awareness and consciousness to stay completely open. And as a result, when you have an expanded level of consciousness, you have also an expanded level of what? Choice, options. See, to me, consciousness isn't just about becoming more aware, just for the sake of being more aware, although it's nice to be more aware. To me, consciousness, from a practical perspective, is really important because it gives you more options. Because every decision matters, but what we've got to understand is the quality of the decisions that we make every day that determine the outcome that we get. Okay, and sometimes it's just as important to make a decision, as it is to not make a decision. But being able to determine what decisions we should be making and not be making, fundamentally will be determined by how aware are we of the bigger picture, and are we experiencing stress or emotion in those situations and scenarios. So this weekend, I want to invite every single one of you to open yourselves up to be able to perform at a much higher level. But I also want to give you some tools. Who would like some real practical tools to learn how to regulate stress and emotion at a much higher level? Okay. Because, by the way, this is the difference that makes a difference. Okay, and when I say the difference that makes a difference, this is the thing, what I'm about to give you is the very thing that could change the entire game. How do I know this? Because it's what changed my game. Okay, I used to suffer from debilitating anxiety, high levels of anxiety, panic attacks, you name it. Okay, and as a result of experiencing high levels of anxiety and thinking there was something wrong with me, I started to seek and sort and try and find ways to regulate so I could feel normal like everyone else. Can anyone relate to this at all at any level? Who here has experienced anxiety before? And who would agree it's not a fun feeling? Okay, so I actually developed this as a process of not only just dealing. It started off with how do I just feel normal, and then it was like, well, fuck. The more normal I feel, the higher I perform. How do I perform? And then it just kind of led down this path. But when it comes to regulating stress or regulating emotion, there's a 4 to 5 step process. Now, whether I give you the 5th step or not today, we might wait for the 5th step tomorrow. But I will give you the first four steps right now so that you can use it. Because today, there's going to be a lot of opportunities, not just today, but in the next 3 days, for you to be able to use these tools. And by tools, I'm talking about in the next 3 days, I want you guys to be as conscious as possible. Okay, but also I'm very conscious of the fact and aware of the fact, depending on what your relationship is here and the things that we talk about, there's a possibility some of you might get triggered. Okay, and you might feel pressure, you might feel a little bit of anxiety, you might feel a little bit of a stress. But what happens is when you feel that, you're not going to be the best version of yourself in this environment. And some of you, when you get triggered, you might not be triggered from a stress perspective, you might be triggered emotionally because perhaps the way someone speaks to you in this, over the next 3 days, it reminds you of the way that someone else once spoke to you, and it reminded you of how you felt bullied, and all this other stuff starts to come up. Everyone's got their shit. You guys understand? We've all got our shit. Okay, we've all got our cross to bear. What's most important is how do you deal with your shit? Okay, and the process I'm about to give you now is going to help you do exactly that. So step 1, when it comes to regulating stress or regulating emotion, is first and foremost, it's going to come back to the very thing we're talking about. You've got to be aware. You've got to be aware. And by the way, when I say aware, I'm talking about you've got to be either aware that you have emotions in play, okay, or aware that you're actually triggered. You're either triggered emotionally or you're triggered from a stress perspective. Because do you think it's fair to say some people live in their emotions, or some people live in their stress for so long it becomes their baseline and that's just how they live? It's like, well, hang on, I'm stressed all the time. So how do you know when you're not stressed? Well, I'm not really sure. So the goal here is to become aware of what your baseline is, of what does it feel like not to be stressed. Because when you know what it feels like not to be stressed, then it's going to be a lot easier for you to identify when you are. Okay, it's going to be a lot easier for you to identify, because anyone here knows someone's just angry all the time? So how do they know when they're not? How do they know if someone's angry all the time? How do they know when they're really angry? If they're angry, do you guys get me? We've got to get back to basics. We've got to get back to the baseline and be able to not only connect with, but be able to identify what does it feel like not to be stressed. What does it feel? And for some of you, like, fuck, I can't remember what it feels like not to be stressed. And if that is your answer, you might be going, well, that's a terrible thing. Terrible answer. No, that's a great awareness. I don't know what it feels like not to be stressed. Fantastic. What does that mean you should do? Find out. Where's a great place to start? Meditation. Guess what we have in the office? A meditation room. Do you guys with me on this? It's about the journey and about being able to become conscious of the things that need to be worked on or that need to change in order for us to be able to do it. So first step, you've got to be aware, okay, that there is stress in play. Second step, as basic as it sounds, you guys got to remember to breathe. Okay, and there's a process that we teach the K2s, which is 6-6-6. Okay, it can be 8-8-8. But what you need to understand is, why is breath so important when it comes to dealing with stress and emotion? Timmy.
It activates your nervous system.
It resets your autonomic nervous system. So when you experience stress, what do you think is actually activated? Your autonomic nervous system. That's fight or flight. Autonomic nervous system is triggered. You have some kind of visual or physical stimulus. Okay, your brain then directs that physical or that visual stimulus through a network of neurons of past memories and references that determine what that means. Okay, and then it activates a response. When it's active and you're stressed, the visceral sac around all of your major organs constricts. Okay, and it squeezes blood out of all the major organs and pumps into the extremities so that you can fight or flight. You guys, who understands what I'm talking about here? So by breathing, by forcing breath into our lungs, we're actually resetting the autonomic nervous system. Okay, and it is literally the fastest way to relieve anxiety. The fastest way to reset the autonomic nervous system is by 6-6-6 breathing or 8-8-8 breathing, and forcing your chest cavity to actually expand and reset the autonomic nervous system. Because here's the beautiful part. What is the autonomic nervous system also connected to? Another system, really important system in the body.
Immune system.
It's directly connected to your immune system. Okay? So the more your autonomic nervous system is triggered, the more compromised your immune system becomes. Who's like, wow, fuck, I can see the correlation, because sometimes when I get stressed, I get sick. Has anyone actually had that experience? So there are so many reasons for us to learn how to do this. It's not funny, because the more you know how to regulate stress, the more conscious you are. The better conversations you're able to have with your friends, your family, the people that are important to you. Okay? The more better you are to deal with stress, also the better you are able to make decisions, because you're going to have more information available to you. Breath is the key. So everyone take a nice deep breath right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Who feels better just doing it once? Imagine if you did it 6 times in a row. Just as an example, if we had more time, we would. Okay. Third thing you need to do when you're experiencing stress or emotion is you need to actually reassess the stimulus. Okay, because sometimes the very thing that is stressing you is just something that shouldn't be stressing you in the first place. Okay, and so what we do in order to reassess the stimulus is we actually manage the meaning. Okay, you can also call it frame control. But what you need to understand is whether you realize it from a conscious or a subconscious perspective, anytime you are triggered emotionally or anytime you are triggered from a stress perspective, guess what your role was in that reaction? You actually chose it to mean something. Experiences don't come with prepackaged meanings. Okay? Every experience you have in your life is a blank canvas until you allocate a meaning, and most people allocate a meaning based on what? Something that it was close to, something that it was like. You see, this is where to play at a high performance level, you've basically got to interrupt that connection and go, you know what? I'm no longer just going to react, because reactivity connected to stress means that you're just going to react to the response. I'm actually going to slow down. I'm actually going to respond. How do you respond? You start to look at what the stimulus is, and you start to ask a couple of questions. And the questions we ask are, what is the benefit of this? You might want to write this down. What is the benefit of this? So something happens to you, your immediate response is, this is bad. And then you go, hang on, fuck, I'm stressed. Hang on, let's breathe for a moment. But if you don't manage the stimulus, guess what's going to happen? You're going to breathe, you're going to get yourself all nice and neutral, and then you're going to go, but fuck, everything's still shit, and then you're going to be back in the stress. Who understands what I'm talking about here? It becomes a stressful loop. Who's had that experience in their life before, where something in their life really stresses them out, so you ignore it, and you go away and you do everything else, and you get yourself nice and comfortable again, but then every time you fucking come across that thing in your life, you get all fucking stressed out again. Has anyone ever had that? Okay, imagine if you could actually consciously intervene in that cycle and go, you know what, I'm actually going to choose this stimulus to mean something different, also called a reframe. Let's reframe it. Let's control the frame. So rather than me just reacting to something's bad, I'm going to ask some really intelligent questions. What's the benefit of this? There is no benefit. There is a benefit to fucking everything. Okay? That's life, the duality of life. Every single experience in your life has a benefit. We call that hindsight. Who here has had something really bad happen in their life and you thought at the time it was the worst possible thing that ever happened to you? And that same experience 2 years later, you reflected upon, you're like, oh my God, that was the greatest, most important thing in my life. We call that hindsight, right? And to me, my question is, why do we have to wait 6 months or 12 months for hindsight to kick in? Why can't we actually engage hindsight in the moment by consciously intervening in the conversation and becoming really directed towards what it is that we want? If we want to balance something out, and by the way, I don't just do this with bad things. I also do this with good things. Because sometimes when something good happens, guess what the first thing is that we want to do? We want to do what? Woohoo! We become all G'd up. Has anyone here ever been really excited before? Has anyone here ever been so excited before that you made a really fucking bad decision and you didn't realise until you calmed down? Anyone ever done that? Yeah? Eric? But do you take my point? What we've got to understand is emotions are like, they're a form of alcohol. They intoxicate us. Okay, and when something feels good, okay, and we decide to celebrate, you are high as a fucking kite and you're not considering any potential downside. And that's when people get taken advantage of. Who here before has ever been in a situation where someone has come and they've fucking told you about this amazing thing that's going to be incredible. You were so captivated and taken by it, you didn't think of any downside at all. And so you jumped in only to find out you got fucking stung. Has anyone ever had that before? But on the flip side of that, has anyone ever had something offered to them, okay, they made it sound really good, but you thought, oh, this is all bad, this is all terrible, this is horrible, I could never do this. And you're like all skeptical, you didn't do it, but then you found out you probably should. But you were so skeptical you didn't take it. Has anyone ever experienced that before? See, for me, I'm doing this at both ends of the spectrum, because my goal here, which is my goal for you, is not to play here or here, it's not to play here, it's to play here. And in the middle, which is neutral. And neutral is that place where you're not void of emotion, you're just conscious of it. Okay, you're not void of stress, you just have the tools and the skills and the ability to learn how to regulate it so that you are absent of it more than in its presence. So in order to do that at a high level, we need to manage the meaning. Something bad happens, what is the benefit of this is the first question. Second question, what skills, knowledge or experience, am I gaining as a result of this? And the last question is, how will this make me better at what I do? As a parent, as a friend, as a girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, as an event manager, coordinator, as a PA, as a concierge. How will this actually make me better? Because our goal here is when something stressful is happening, our goal here is to balance that stress out and go, the reason we're stressed right now is because we think this is bad. But what if it's not? What if it's actually good, but you just can't see the good yet and you have to wait 6 months to see the hindsight? Let's bring the hindsight in now. Because if you can bring the hindsight in now, guess what happens to the stress? It starts to Serena Williams is sitting out in the court. You know, she's got fucking 800 people watching her, or what, I don't know, whatever, fuck, right? Lots of people, okay? Do you think she's sitting there going, oh, I hate the fucking finals. Oh, I fucking hate the finals. It's the worst part. Oh, I hate it when it's down to the wire. Or do you think she's sitting there going, fuck yeah, let me show you how this is done? Again, what does it mean? Oh my God, all these people are looking at me. Oh, if I make a mistake, I'm going to look really bad. Wow, this is an opportunity. I have the opportunity to win Wimbledon today. Okay, I have the opportunity to go down in history as one of the greatest female athletes on the planet. It sounds weird coming out of my mouth. But you get my point. If we manage the meaning, we have the ability to not only determine what is stressful, but we also have the ability to be able to determine what triggers us emotionally. Because imagine a world, and I want you to think about this for a second, imagine a world where nothing can trigger you. No one can push your buttons. Guess what? You're fucking free. You've just entered the fucking, what do they call it? The, yeah, sure, but I call it the bonus round. The bonus round, sorry, more of a gamer. To me, the bonus round is, does anyone here ever played video games? And you reach a certain score where all of a sudden you hit the bonus round and nothing could kill you? Like you could just literally go, like in Pac-Man, like you fucking get one of those, for the old people. Surely, who here knows Pac-Man? Who's like, all right, but just say there's a video game, it could be Pac-Man, it could be not. But then you hit the bonus round and all of a sudden the things that once upon a time could kill you, don't kill you anymore. You can actually consume them and get points. So imagine a world where you actually live in, where the things that stress you don't actually stress you, they fucking empower you. Okay, you step up to the challenge. And when those things arise, you go, wow, clearly I need a better version of myself today. This should be fun. Versus, oh my God, I hate it when this happens. This is going to be a terrible day. Last time this happened, it was the worst day of my life. It's about taking a level of consciousness and applying it to your experience. And realizing that your life isn't happening to you. It's happening from you. And right now, your entire experience is nothing more than a projection. Your eyes right now are the lens, and your brain is running a film. And whatever you're running as the film in your brain right now is being projected out of your eyes, and this reality is your screen. And what you're seeing right now, it's all you. It's all you. You can't blame anyone else if you're experiencing stress. You can't blame anyone else if you're sad or unhappy with any area of your life. It is all your fucking fault. Which relates to what we were talking about with Matthias earlier, which is extreme ownership. If you want to perform at the highest level, and look, by the way, high performance is not for everyone, but if you're here by virtue of being here, okay, you've been identified to have high performance traits. But who here, by virtue of just their own mission, wants to be the absolute highest and best performer they possibly can be in their own life? Okay, so you're all committed to high performance, right? What do you think is required in order to do that? To step into that highest level? Well, first of all, it's going to require effort on your part, but on my part, I'm going to give you the invitation. Okay, I'm going to invite every single one of you to step up. I'm going to invite every single one of you to find new potential that you didn't have before. And I'm going to encourage every single one of you to push yourselves, not just in the next 3 days, but in the next 12 months. This is about, by the way, guys, the next 3 days, we are creating the next 12 months. Okay, we're not just sitting here fucking, pissing away time, partying on Hamilton Island. We are literally, and I want you to get into this mindset, we are psychologically, we are, quantum mechanically, we are spiritually, physically, we are materialistically creating what we want to happen in the next 12 months. And the more conscious we are as we go through that process, the more able we are to manage our stress and emotions, the smoother this process is going to run. And the better you're going to come out of the back end of it. And the last thing that I want to show you from here, when it comes to dealing with stress, is your goal is to experience some level of gratitude for the moment you're in. Kerwin, that's a little bit, that's okay. That was good up until there. Why all the fucking warm and fuzzies? Why do we have to go, oh, I'm so grateful for being stressed? Is it me just being warm and fuzzy, or is there a bigger agenda? Well, if you know the content, there's a bigger agenda. Okay? And this is the beautiful, this is kind of exciting and scary at the same time. It's exciting because this is all new for some of you, but it's scary at the same time. It's like, you guys should watch more of our videos. They're really fucking good. But the reason that we ask the questions that we do, What is the benefit of this? How is this serving me? What skills, knowledge, and experience am I gaining as a result of this that I now have that I didn't have yesterday? How is this making me better, faster, stronger? How is this making me a better mother, a better athlete, a better filmmaker? When we ask those questions, we come up with things that are positive. And then we have the ability to actually reflect on those positive things and go, wow, I'm actually really thankful for this experience. In fact, I'm not upset that this experience happened anymore. I'm actually really grateful. Why is gratitude so important as an emotion? 2 things. Lady in the middle.
It lowers your stress levels.
Because one of the biochemical responses of stress is adrenaline and cortisol. When you experience stress, your body releases cortisol, and I want you guys to hear what I'm about to say. Listen in, dial in. When you experience stress, your body releases adrenaline and cortisol. Cortisol, within 7 minutes, halves your IQ. Now, let's battle test this. Has anyone here ever done anything really fucking stupid under the influence of stress? Only when you calm down, you was like, wow, that was really fucking stupid. I was so stressed, I shouldn't have done that. So stress actually makes us stupid. And that's why stress is the enemy of high performance, because high performance requires a level of intelligence. And I'm not talking about academic intelligence, I'm talking about universal intelligence, your ability to understand yourself, okay? Your ability to understand your environment and the skills and the things that you're doing. Cortisol, not only does it rise when you're experiencing stress, not only does it halve your IQ within 7 minutes, it's also highly carcinogenic. It causes cancer. Stressed people experience high levels of disease in their body at an organ level, okay, and all around in general. It also destroys, if you're a woman, it will eat all of your estrogen. If you're a man, it'll eat all of your testosterone. What are the symptoms of what are the symptoms of low hormone function? If you're a man and you've got low levels of testosterone, or if you're a woman and you've got low levels of estrogen, what's the symptom of that? Weight gain and low energy. So not only does stress make you stupid, it also makes you fat. Stress ain't good. Sorry? Some people lose weight and can make them skinny, too skinny. But the goal here, stress makes you stupid, okay? So the way that we counteract stress is, yes, this is all very helpful, but we also, because what we're doing here, this is consciously, this is physiologically, this is psychologically, and this is biochemically. And the reason this is biochemically is because gratitude, when you experience natural levels of gratitude, your body produces and releases high levels of DHEA from its adrenal glands. DHEA is a natural hormone, okay, that when it is released, okay, it actually is a neuroprotectant, so it protects your neurons and helps them grow. It makes you smarter. It's like miracle grow for your brain. Okay, it increases your immune system, so it actually makes you healthier. Okay, it makes you stronger. It gives you greater bone density. DHEA starts declining at age 25. And from age 25 onwards, most people find themselves more susceptible to stress. People just go, well, I'm just growing up now. No, your hormones are also a factor in this as well. So when you experience gratitude, your natural DHEA levels, that hormone naturally starts to rise. And as a result, guess what that does to the cortisol level? It naturally reduces your cortisol levels. So we're approaching stress from a conscious perspective, from a physiological perspective, from a psychological perspective, and also a biochemical perspective. We are literally containing stress. But as a result, you develop a skill within yourself where you can deal with anything. Okay, you can deal with death. You can deal with breakups. Okay, you can deal with heart. You can deal with anything better because all of a sudden you've now got a set of tools to deal with it. Most people don't deal with stress well because no one ever showed them how to deal with it in the first place. Most parents, do you know what for those of you who don't have kids, this is maybe a little bit premature, but all of you, who here at some point wants to have kids? Lou, you really should put your hand up because it'd be awkward if you don't. Awkward. And look, I'll be really open with this. One of the things that I'm learning as a parent now, and I'm not just learning it now, I've known this the whole way through, and I don't know how much most of you know about my story, but most of you know enough about my story to know that I have a history with addiction. Okay, and so as a result, anything that comes up in my life, I become obsessive about it and I study it. And so I've done a disproportionate amount of study to understand why are some people addicted to things and why are others not? Why is it that one person can go to the bar on a Friday night and have 2 beers and go home fine? Why is it that another person goes to the bar on a Friday night and they can't stop until they are slurring and someone has to actually carry them home? What's the difference? And do you know the major difference between those two people? Is their brain. People who are addictive by virtue, and by the way, please understand when I'm talking about addiction, I'm not leaving anyone out. Addiction, just like emotions, is a spectrum. And every single one of you is on the spectrum. It just depends on where on the spectrum. Down here, on this level of the spectrum, okay, this is where you have, someone who is homeless, they're on hard drugs, they sell their body, they sell sex in order to get money. They are at the worst end of the spectrum. Okay, down here at the light end of the spectrum, you've got people who like to go shopping a lot. Okay, they can't put down their phone. Okay, for some people, and this is something you may or may not know, some people don't actually realise the biochemical structure of emotions are actually addictive. Emotions, the molecules of emotions actually work on the same receptors in the brain that narcotics, barbiturates, and all forms of other drugs do as well. So emotions are highly addictive. Some people are addicted to trying to be happy all the time, and unless they're happy all the time, they're not happy all the time. Okay? Some people are addicted to being angry. Who knows people that are literally, you can go, okay, I can see that they're actually addicted to the emotional state that they have. Some people are addicted to adrenaline. Okay, and as a result, they wake up every day and they'll engage in very risky levels of behaviour. But addiction is a spectrum, and along the middle, you have everything from people who will use substance and they can use it. I only use it on the weekends, but I use it every single weekend. To people who use substance every single day, to people whose lives completely fall apart as a result of it. Who understands what I'm talking about here? So we're all on the addiction spectrum, right? Fuck, where was I going? You can't help me with this? All right. I was heading somewhere really important. This is what exhaustion looks like. Okay. Kids! Thank you, Lou. Appreciate that very dearly. The main difference between someone who lives here and someone who lives here is their brain. But most importantly, how their brain developed. See, when you grow up as a child, okay, one of the most important roles that your parents have isn't just to make sure that you are safe and warm and that you've got a bottle in your mouth, but one of the most important functions that your parents have is to make sure that you know the difference between what is safe and what is not. And also, what comes on top of that is their ability to show you how to regulate when you feel unsafe, showing you how to regulate when you feel stressed. Now, who thinks it's fair to say that most people, in general, in the general community, have no idea how to fucking regulate stress? Okay, my parents included. Okay, and so as a result, when you have a baby, okay, and the parent doesn't actually know how to regulate stress, okay, and as a result, the baby is exposed to high levels of stressful environment, but it's not demonstrated or shown how to regulate that stress, the baby's brain literally starts to pump blood in different directions, and it creates what's called a maladaptive brain environment, and different parts of the brain become stronger. Okay, and other parts of the brain become weaker. But what happens most importantly is it creates a dopamine imbalance. And as a result, when the brain is maladaptive and you have a dopamine imbalance, the first time someone with a dopamine imbalance in their brain gets a shot of tequila, gets a line of Coke, okay, has a drink of something, has a smoke of something, guess what happens in their brain? A rush of dopamine. And for the first time in their life, they feel what? Normal. And then they go, wow, now I know how to feel normal. I just got to blaze. Okay, now I know how to feel normal. I just got to drink. Now I know how to feel normal. I just got to take a pill every weekend. You guys understand what I'm talking about here? To me, I think addiction, regardless of the spectrum that you're on, is a very, very powerful force if you're conscious of how it plays out. If you are unconscious to your addictive patterns, okay, that is a recipe for fucking disaster. But what I do know is the best way that you work with anyone that is on any level of spectrum of behaviour is showing them how to essentially affect proper brain function. Because if your brain is working well, if your brain is functioning well, and if it's pumping blood in the right directions, then you're going to feel well. Does this make sense? And the way that we feel well, the way that we get our brain pumping blood in the right directions is we learn how to regulate. Some of us were never taught. Okay? And as a result, our brains developed in different ways, and we learnt to use certain behaviours to feel better. We learnt to use certain substances to feel better. But if you have a higher level of awareness, you get to a point where you realise, this shit doesn't make me feel good. Okay, yeah, maybe it gives me a temporary fix, but it doesn't actually make me feel good. It's not sustainable. And then you start to realise, the only way I'm ever going to find total fulfillment is not by looking at something or looking at some external behaviour out there, it's by working on stuff in here. You guys with me on this? So this weekend, it's not a weekend, let's just pretend it is. I'm just so used to saying this weekend. This week, I want you guys to be open. I want you to be open okay, and conscious of your experience from a stressful perspective, from an emotional perspective, but also from a repetitious behavioural perspective. Because some people just are addicted to being right. Who knows someone that's addicted to being right? Which means and people who are addicted to being right, guess what they never do? They never admit when they're wrong. And they never take responsibility. And if you want to achieve the highest level of performance, you've got to realise everything is your fault. You're a projector. Anything you see, you're part of it. Anything you see, you co-created it. The question is how much responsibility you're taking in that. And the greatest gift I could give you this morning as we move into what's going to be happening next is responsibility makes you fucking powerful. It makes you powerful beyond measure. Because if you blame someone for a situation that you've been involved in, guess what happens? Who gets the power? Whoever you blame gets the power because, well, fucking was out of my control. You've got all the power. You created it in my life. That's what you call disempowered. And I don't know about you, but I hate feeling like other people are directing my movie. Can anyone relate to this on some level? So the way that you take the directorship back is you own everything. Everything is your fault. Everything is your fault in your role, okay, in your life, in your personal life, in your health, everything. But here's the thing. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just means if it didn't go the way that it needed to, then we've got to do some work on it. How do we do some work on it? We remain as conscious as possible, okay? We remain as neutral as possible, okay? But we also remain as open and stress-free as possible. We remain as open as possible to find out how we can do it better. You're not going to learn how to do your job better if you're too busy defending your actions that you're doing right now. Okay? You're not going to learn how to do your job better if you think you're doing a great job already when you perhaps know that there could be another level. The way that you constantly grow is you become conscious of what's next. Okay? And you don't wait for someone to come and fucking hand it to you. The highest performers in the world, they don't wait for someone to come and hand them the opportunities. They seek them out. They find them. They search for them. They do whatever it takes. A real high performer will not allow someone else to dictate how they grow, because they will chase it themselves. Why? Because it's a real and genuine value. So the next 3 days, I want you guys to just, level up. I want to invite you on the journey. Okay? I want you to use the tools, but I also want you to all to realise the importance that every single one of you has in this organisation in the next 12 months. Every single one of you is important. Okay? You wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be fucking spending thousands of dollars per head to bring you guys to an island to sit down and talk shit for 3 days if you weren't important. Okay, you're all here for a reason. You're all here because you're a part of the purpose and what it is that we're here to do. And I really encourage you this weekend to step into this opportunity, because there is part of me that's going, well, let's see how this is going to work. Is there ROI and bringing the whole team away once a year to a really nice destination to do this? Or should I just be keeping this just for the leadership team? So this weekend, I'm going to encourage you to show me what this means to you. Show me what it means to be involved at this level. Because I can tell you right now, most organisations at this scale do not include everyone in their planning process. If anything, they exclude people and they have private conversations. This is open. You guys get to see everything in terms of how we run this. And that, to me, is worth its weight in absolute gold. You guys ready for a big 3 days? Yes! Are you ready for a big 3 days? Yeah! All right. Mark, what's next?